Robert, something
Yes.
exciting is coming up.
Is it local or is it far away or is it Canadian or what?
Might be Canadian national, and I think
Oh, okay.
it's the
Yeah, fantastic.
election this year or next year. Anyway, on this episode of Real Estate Chat with
John DePerez.
and Robert Eid, if we were to guess when the election would happen, when would that be?
It's going to be in the second or third quarter of 2025.
So we're still a long ways to go. However, the headlines, I guess, going into the at least pertaining to the real estate market, have a lot to do with promises of even more funding for houses. $115 million worth. So in this article, $115 million of funding could help build 40,000 homes in Vancouver over a decade, says Prime Minister Mr. Trudeau. Robert, what's your take on this? I mean, more promises. I mean, you did the quick math of this, and 115 million divided, that's a lot of zeros, by the way, when you read it that way, but divided by 40,000 new homes built
That's
over
about,
10
yeah, that's
years.
38.75 per unit. And then if you divide that by year, it's like around $300 um, per unit per year. So it's small
$300.
potatoes
$300 per unit
per
per year.
year. Well, when you divide it out for 10 years is the deal, and it's for 40,000 units. So that works out to $300.
So Vancouver needs housing, Toronto needs housing. I guess major Canadian cities need housing. This answers the supply part of the issue. Whether or not this actually happens, I guess it's just a matter of timing. But Robert,
Well, this is very, very interesting because this money is coming from the Housing Accelerator Fund. And so what that is money that will be used to subsidize or to provide, depending on the municipality we're talking about, to subsidize the financing that existing developments are going to use to complete or start construction. So if their costs are lower, then you would think that they could have a more, at a lower price, they could have a more, an equally profitable building constructed, and that the rents on the other end would be lower than otherwise. Now, we know right now that the rents are going to be as high as they possibly can be. And if they're being contained at the end of that, well, they're being contained and somebody else is subsidizing. However, if we are trying to deal with something called affordability, as I've said 750 times before, affordability is a function of family income compared to the purchase price, the value of the real property, and the interest rates that used to finance it. So this particular accelerator fund, which Christia, I don't want to call her a communist, let's just say that she's a red, was going to cancel when she first took over the portfolio. And now it's the centerpiece of her whole future thing. But it's not doing anything. Maybe it's subsidizing or reducing the interest rate that an existing project already in the works is going to experience. And of course, that's going to a company that was already well established on the list of donors for political purposes, tax deductible. It's not going to do a darn thing. It's just a big noise that's going to help out somebody to do something they were already planning to do. Now, if you want to do something about interest rates, it looks like the Bank of Canada and the Federal Reserve is going to do something. If you want to do something about purchase price, you got to get a lot of people on board about having their property go down in value. Most people don't want that. So family incomes are not going to change all that much. All that's left is to do something, and this is what I said in my comment, this Canada Post or Canadian Press article that we just had up on the screen there appeared in the Financial Post, and I put a comment on there saying, if you really want to deal with this issue, then do like Doug Ford's done on the main streets. Mandate, unilaterally declare that the zoning all of a sudden is doubled or tripled or quadrupled on every single subdivision that's been in existence, was registered 90 years ago. 90 years ago, that's an old decrepit building. But if they're now all of a sudden allowed to have four units on every single one, that whole subdivision, that whole piece of land is worth a tremendous amount. Somebody's going to try and assemble that land, and maybe they won't pay 4 times for it, but they'll pay 2 times for it. And that's more than the owner could get any other way. So then right on the ground, 90-year-old property, think of where those are. in the charming old heritage parts of every one of the small towns across Ontario, in the deepest, darkest recesses of Cabbagetown and Rosedale, the oldest parts will now be worth way more. But they'll be worth way more if you can assemble the land and if you can now put something new on it. If you've got an intensification of use and you can now create something with much greater density, instead of having 5 houses per acre, you've got 600 units per acre. They'll be much cheaper, they'll be much affordable, and they'll be closer to the city. They want your 15-minute cities. Well, this can be a brand new development right next door to the University of Toronto. Isn't that what you want? Now, in this way, the decision will be made by the individual homeowners. They'll have to take their own wealth quotient into effect and say, would I rather stay here and enjoy this beautiful green neighborhood of bike riders, or would I rather take the money and move to New Liskeard? And it'll be up to them. But trying to subsidize somebody else who's already going to do it anyway, because interest rates are right high, and make it easier for him and make it sound like you're giving manna to the masses is just as silly as
So it's
most of the things they propose.
politically motivated, I guess, or just to.
Well, it makes a great headline. 115 million sounds like a lot of money, right? Until you divide it by 10 years, until you divide it by 40,000 units. And it's a lot of noise, as you said right off the bat, about an election, and trying to change the perspective of, we don't care about housing. Now, the real thing is you got supply and demand. So they're trying to boost up supply. What about demand? Who says you want 1 million people to come here next year when you haven't got a place for them to go? We talked about this before.
Oh.
So you cut back on immigration. You don't offer any more dual citizens. You say, look, if you want to come here, great, fantastic. You got a job? Oh, you don't have a job. Well, don't come back until you do have a job. Oh, your family's here? Well, that's great. If they can support you, then they can support. Oh, they can't support you. Well, then sorry, find another time. Like, we used to have a point system for immigration that was based on your skills and ability and this, that, and the other thing. Speaking the language was one. So what kind of a country do you want to have? One that's divided by all the things they are prohibiting under the Canadian Charter: ethnicity, language, sex, every single one that they say is a prohibitive ground and discriminatory, are how they're dividing the population into little voting groups, and they're trying to appeal to each other. So is it politics? No, it's just the way they're doing it right now.
Well, there you have it. If you have any questions about this particular chat, and we included the article so you can decipher it, and you can also look at what the Conservatives have thought about this. And it's obviously, as Robert pointed out, control the demand part of the equation rather than, putting all of these big, impressive numbers together, and for obvious reasons. But if you are a real estate investor, if you're a real estate chatter who's looking on how to capitalize on these things, stay tuned in our future episodes as we tell you about how to make investment plays, especially going into 2024. Right, Robert? We've got some exciting stuff coming up in the new year.
Constantly exciting. We got unlimited potential wonderfulness.
There you go. So all of our past episodes of Real Estate Chat, which you've watched, we're going to show you how to make the opportunities out of it so that you can build wealth for yourself and your family. Thanks for watching this episode of Real Estate Chat. Take care and bye for now.
Yeah.